Good morning and welcome to another edition of Badass Marketing. I am joined by my co-host, Angela Duns. Angela, how are you?
I am doing really well. How about
So
yourself, Mike?
I am good. I am good. We survived Thanksgiving. We survived all of the Black Friday, Small
Oh,
Business Saturday, Cyber Monday,
so
and
no
whatnot.
websites broke down or anything like that?
No, everything was up and running, and our clients are happy. We had some, great weekend stuff, and we did a lot of promotions around Small Business Saturday. And then we then immediately followed with Giving Tuesday. So this was quite the week of events between Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, and Shopping Local, Cyber Monday, and then Giving Tuesday. That kept us quite busy for a couple of days. But we're on the other side of that, and then obviously running right towards the holidays, so that with promotions and
Tomorrow's the
stuff like that.
first.
Tomorrow. Oh my God, how is that possible?
I
Uh,
it it isn't. Honestly.
so do you have? I see some Christmas decorations behind you. I see new lighting, so I know that you've gone there. It's pre-December, and you've
Uh,
already gone there.
I have two beautiful poinsettias also. I have one in the kitchen and one in my office. So yes, I have kittens that like to tear apart absolutely everything. They do not
Mm.
understand Christmas yet. Um, they do not have
Yeah, your
respect
cats are
for
27. What do you mean yet?
you,
It's
and
just never happening. Embrace
they're
that.
finally to settle down. But I'm telling you, they're boys, and they're boys. They're just
We went
everything
to
is a toy.
yeah, we went to Costco a couple of weeks ago, and they had the Christmas wreaths out. And we're like, oh my God. Like it wasn't, like we had maybe just gotten past Halloween and it wasn't even Thanksgiving. We're like, oh
No,
my God, these
no.
things, and they're really pretty wreaths, but we're like, I don't know if they're gonna make it to, the middle of December at this rate since they were out so early. So we have resisted, and we actually have
Good for you.
an ongoing debate, like when is it too early? So I
After
think we've
Thanksgiving,
well, we've kind of decided that, like, like the December 1st is our sort of like, so I imagine this weekend we will go out and get some decorations, and I know we have lights, and my daughter's been itching to put up the lights, so I'm sure this weekend we're gonna go vomit holiday stuff all over the front yard. So
I brought the boxes in from storage. So,
yeah, yeah, it's on its way, right?
yep, yep, slowly.
So, we're leading into the holiday season and we've got a ton of stuff going on. And yet we still seem to find time to talk about other things. So, today, what we want to talk about is what are some of the trends that we're seeing going into the holiday season and going into sort of, just some of the marketing in general as we go into the holiday season, as we start to launch into 2024, which is apparently right around the corner at the rate we're going. So, which is just so hard to believe. But so what are you seeing trends wise, and what's going on your end, and we'll talk about what's going on in ours and that kind of thing.
Well, with any of these trends, there is going too far and going just far enough to make it work. And the whole nostalgia trend seems to be, it's with us. I mean, it is a very real thing. And I'm going to say, I
We have a
like,
guest, so
yes, I see that. And he's so cute. Um,
yeah.
I like the nostalgia one. And especially if you have an established brand like
And
Coca-Cola,
what does that
some
mean? From an what is the nostalgia trend?
it's bringing back some form of old marketing. Like
Hmm.
Coca-Cola has been around forever. So there is, you know, their holiday stuff, some of it is nostalgic. I mean, after post pandemic, a lot of us have really been pining for, the good old days, the feel good days,
Whatever that means, right?
whatever that means.
Yeah.
Yes. And so nostalgia marketing has been a very big presence in some of the big ad agencies. And, you know, used tastefully and sparingly and done right, it can be very effective.
And it's also, this is the time of the year, right? Because as we go into the holidays, the holidays are about family, the holidays are about getting together, about sharing, that type of thing. And that these are traditions that for most of us are rooted in our childhood. So nostalgia is a huge aspect and sort of an emotional component of holiday marketing. Whether or not the good old days were as good as we remembered them, or if there was a little revisionist history, is irrelevant, right? This idea of the magic of the holidays, the magic of Christmas, that type of thing, and going back to hopefully some of your more positive memories when it comes to holidays. Most of us, and we won't share it on this podcast, have horror stories around the holidays as well. But let's focus on just sort of the magic of the season. And I think nostalgia is well worked into that, tapping into some of our emotional responses around what we think about the holidays and family and that whole aspect. So I think particularly at this time of year, nostalgia marketing is very appropriate. What else are we
Yes.
seeing?
Well, there's a lot of different things. Storytelling is going to be big, but we did a whole episode on that.
Yeah.
Simplicity. Simplicity is just, I know I've mentioned this before, but when it comes to logos and marketing in general, simple is better. Not eight different colors in a particular graphic, or verbiage all over the place, or that sort of thing. But simplicity is really, that's, we don't need to be inundated with information in a single graphic. If you're creating an emotion or eliciting some sort of a response very quickly and easily with simplicity, that's going to be tons more effective than trying to throw up everything onto a single graphic about what you do or your product.
Yeah, and the whole simplicity aspect is, if you can convey your message or the feel of your brand, in either a visual or a very effective tagline, that's the magic of branding, because so many of us struggle with our messaging and we create these really long, long, long explanations, and nobody reads those, nobody cares. So the magic of branding is when you nail it like that, where it's just a very simple image. The one that comes to mind is the Nike swoosh. That is just, it's a very simple, probably doesn't get any simpler than that. And yet it's worldly recognized. We understand it when we see it. We know it's Nike, that type of thing. And then their tagline is just do it. We get that as well. No over explanation, and yet it works, it's effective, and when you nail it like that, it's just amazing from a marketing perspective.
And one of my favorite examples, if as long as we're talking about nostalgia, is the iPod one. You can describe how many gigabytes and what the size is and what the weight is and all of that kind of thing, and nobody cares. But if you say 1,000 songs in your pocket,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that gets people's attention, and really they want to know more. And that's all you say is just 1,000 songs in your pocket.
And it's simple, it's clean, and yet it conveys everything you want to know, right? Nobody cares how much memory you have or anything like that. What we want to know is what's the benefit. Show me the benefit, and the benefit is 1,000
Yes,
songs in your pocket.
precisely.
Yep.
Pictures are
I
just not it.
yeah. I think from our side, as it comes to trends, there's, this is 2023, we're going into 2024. There's just no ignoring generative AI, whether it be Chat GPT or any other, whether it be Bard, whether it be the Google product. I mean, these are just, I Chat GPT is just turned a year.
Shockingly.
Yeah, this week just turned a year, 1 year old, and I can't think of a product that's entered the market and entered into our, consciousness that's as effective and as you know innovative as what we're seeing with generative AI and Chat GPT in particular. I mean, it's amazing that this product has only been on the market for a year, because I would say that a majority of marketers are living and breathing via generative AI these days. and and this is new, right? This is a year old, and we've totally embraced it. And the magic of this is that it keeps getting better and better. As far, we're using Chat GPT 4, and it's including Dolly now. So now after we put together some sort of article or something, then we ask it to create a feature image, tied back to this, and it does that. And it's clearly an AI generated image. We know that for a fact, but I think it's worlds better than the stock images that we had historically used in the past, and
And
overused.
people are sick
Guilty of
of
that. We
those.
extend that. Yeah. And what's funny is we did one, and it's really, creative and beautiful. And we've had people like, can we use that too? We're like, yeah, just give us some credit, but give us some credit and we're happy to share it with you. But I mean, from a trend perspective, I don't think anything, from 2023 even comes close to the impact of ChatGPT and generative AI in general, some of the other tools that are out there as well. We've, in previous discussions, we've talked about how, I truly believe that this has changed search, and that generative AI will continue to change search, and whether or not what that means, and we've talked about that before, but this whole idea of like Google is going to use generative AI so that you never need to leave the Google platform.
Well, and LinkedIn, oh my gosh, there are like 20 different places where LinkedIn uses generative AI. They have gone all in on that.
Yeah, I mean, like I love it. Like, so I mean, we've been using like tools like Grammarly for a long time. Like, I don't even know if I could spell without it.
I
It's
I can't function without Grammarly. I
yeah,
cannot. I am one of their best clients.
we are too, and I mean, it's just amazing. And I mean, a lot of these tools we're using Read AI for to track this particular podcast, and not this particular one, all of them. But the amazing thing is probably within 20 minutes after we're done, we have the transcript, we have a summary which we use. We then take that summary and we put it into Chat GPT and we clean it up a little bit, but we're producing content at an amazing rate. And so is everybody else. So it's quite noisy out there from a content perspective. But these tools are just, I'm amazed at the amount of stuff that we're getting done, with very few folks, whereas in the past, like, these would have been teams and teams and teams of people, in order to support this kind of output.
And I spent an hour with one of my clients. He wanted me to sort of guide him. He's brand new to Chat GPT and a little um reluctant to dive in. Kind of wanted somebody to hold his hand while he was diving
Mm.
in, a little more on the conservative side. He's an operations guy. And what what came out of that discussion was, here are some of the best uses for him for ChatGPT, and everybody needs to find their own. But he's a writer, and rewriting and making suggestions for rewriting is one of the best uses for ChatGPT. It will come up with things from a transcript or original writing that you do that you hadn't thought about, that really spark some good conversation in a piece of writing. Another thing is generating headlines. Some of us are not very talented at putting together headlines that really attract attention. So generating headlines is a really fantastic thing for using ChatGPT, and email subject lines. And then also for topic development, if you're really stuck and, with the blank page syndrome, and you need some ideas, topic generation and a little bit of research and getting you started are fabulous uses of ChatGPT. Now, having it write an original piece for you is probably not what you want to do, because most people can tell if it's completely written by AI or if there's some original aspect to it, your touch, your voice.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a big aspect of that is, if you just put in some generic prompts, you're going to get generic responses. But it's really about, understanding how to prompt for the types of answers that you want. And then based on the answers you want, asking it the next series of questions. Because I think the area where ChatGPT works the best is as you iterate, right? So I'll ask ChatGPT, a question or suggest a topic, and it will respond. And then based on what it's telling me, then I have sort of the next question, like, okay, if you've I'll ask it, identify the pain points around this particular topic, and it will identify the pain points. Then the next question I naturally will ask it is, what solutions are you proposing? So, and then, as it's sort of a question and answer, but it gets closer and closer, and it's not quite as generic in its response. The other thing that we're using ChatGPT for, and I'm going to tell you, this has been amazing, is just other functions within the organization and functions within what we're trying to accomplish. So, for instance, we are in the process of launching a merchant association for a local neighborhood, and we're going to ChatGPT and say, what do we need to do? Tell us, tell us what the legal aspects are. Tell us what the,
That is
right.
brilliant.
So it's outlining, and of course, we're going to follow up with, advice of counsel and advice of attorney, accountants. But like this gives us sort of a working outline to start from. And it's, there's things on that list that, either we didn't know, or it's like, oh right, we have to take care of that too. So it's doing a wonderful job in supporting non-marketing, non-content development, because we're asking it questions like, okay, what's the checklist look like in order to start a 501c6 merchant member association? And it gives us the checklist, and we'll check it and verify it. And again, we're going to use counsel and use tax advice, but this does a lot of the heavy lifting for us, so that when we go in and talk to these folks, we're like, okay, here's our checklist, what do you think? And it's probably catching 90%. I wouldn't say all of it, I wouldn't rely solely on it, but it's doing some of the amazing things for that purpose. It also is helping us sort of outline and map and strategize some of our content development as well, particularly in the areas of the biggest thing that we get when we teach and when we do workshops is the request of like, well, show me one, right? So if we do, an online webinar about how to produce a feasibility study, we can talk about it in theory all day long. And everyone's like, just show us what a feasibility study looks like, right? So we can create this, sample feasibility study through ChatGPT and give us, because people want, show me one. We can talk about it theoretically, but this gives us an opportunity of like, okay, here's what one would look like. Here are the components, and here's how you would address that. So, getting those examples out there, if you don't, have one, or if you need to create one, some of the amazing things that we're seeing from a trend perspective using ChatGPT.
Yeah, I recently took 3 of my favorite coaching agreements that I've signed working with different coaches, threw them into ChatGPT and created one for myself, so that I now have a coaching agreement that is set up in automation. And when I start working with people, that automatically goes out to somebody, so that there's some structure, there's some things for them to do, and expectations that they have for me as well. And also for my speaking engagements, I have a wonderful speaker agreement that I created through ChatGPT. So fantastic heavy lifting in areas that you might not have a lot of expertise, so that you can have much more informed conversations once you make it formal.
And one of the things that you mentioned earlier was this idea of like, well, we can recognize when something's been produced with a tool like ChatGPT, because it does a really good job. But of course, we as humans have a unique voice, and it can come close to capturing that. But this idea of the real voice, the authenticity of your messaging. So we think these are some really powerful tools, but don't forget, to add your spin on this or your take on this. So, what are you seeing when it comes to, this idea of in a world of AI that's producing, an ungodly amount of content, using this authentic voice.
Well, and I think, and it came up in a topic in a meeting, a professional meeting that I was in the other day, but authenticity itself is actually a trend because of all the generative AI. Now, the last word that anybody wants to hear anywhere, authenticity has been way overused and nobody really knows what it means.
I was just going
But
to ask you, what does that even mean? But
well, and here's the thing. We're all human beings. And what we are missing is human interaction, actual real connection. So if you can be real with me and talk about my problems, I'm going to listen to you and I'm probably going to hire you to solve those. So it's just being absolutely real and authentic, not um, romanticizing what the problems might be or talking around what those problems are that you're trying to solve for somebody, but actually having a down to earth, one to one conversation that's real. That's what authenticity is for me.
I mean, I would echo that. I mean, the thing that we've been telling our clients for years and years and years is go talk to your customer, because they make all these assumptions about what their needs are. They make these assumptions about what their pain points are. And, that's a great, like we said, that's a great place to start from. However, you know, go out and verify that this is what they need. What's interesting is, we love when real world comes in and just smacks us in the head and says, whatever. So we've been working, one of our projects is we've been working with a local merchant association around branding and around messaging and stuff like that. And this is bad. We were bad, but we went in with some assumptions of like, here's what you need. And like went in trying to tell them what it was that they needed to do and what their messaging would look like. And in hindsight, that wasn't probably the best way to go into that. We probably should have gone in a little more receptive, but we went in with these assumptions, which was fine. But when we actually began to speak to local merchants and what their needs were and what their challenges were, they were slightly different than what we had anticipated. They were aligned, but they were different, and there were nuances that were important for us to incorporate in the ongoing message development. So that is the opportunity to just go out and talk to people. Make all the assumptions you want, but just then remember to go back out and talk to your audience. If you're doing a feasibility study, talk to some prospects. If you think this is what your customer's pain point, go out and ask them like, hey, are you having problems with this? And they're like, it's not really that, but if you work on this, that would be really cool. So, I can't begin to, emphasize enough the go out and be authentic and go out and talk to real people.
Yes. And I think you hit on something that is part of that quintessential definition of authenticity is nuance. What we thought might have been true 3 years ago, there's really there's subtleties, there are layers, there is nuance to all of that. Broad generalizations are not really working anymore. And part of that authenticity is being able to hit on those nuances of what that reality is, what that pain point might be, or what that desire is for that business person.
And I think understanding those nuances is the difference between sort of generic content and,
Yes.
really quality content where like you nail the messaging because you clearly understand what the problem is, and you've addressed this, and that's where again, use a tool like ChatGPT to do the heavy lifting, which is great, and then once it's done the heavy lifting, then go back and review, and then go back and look at what it's offered you, and then tailor it to whatever you're currently working on. Again, we've done this, and it does the heavy lifting. It tells us most of what we need to do when it comes to forming a merchant association on their behalf and then getting the branding. But we still need to go back and talk to them like, okay, what does this quarter stand for? What do we want to be? How do we want to present this? you know um we can make some recommendations, but ultimately it's going to be the end user who's going to want to provide their stamp on the messaging and provide their input on the messaging so that it is personalized, so it resonates with their audience.
Right.
Again,
And at the end of the day, what we're shooting for is some sort of an emotional connection, an emotional response. And without nuance, without kind of that whole mood to what it is, of course you can put in historical things, but what is the mood? What is the emotion? What is the motivation around it? That's where human beings are really important in the messaging aspect.
and depending on from where you're coming from and what type of messaging you're doing, but this idea of like truly understanding the pain points that you are going to address. So many of us go out into the market with a product because we think it's a great solution, and like, hey, buy this thing. And people look at us like we're crazy, whereas instead, if we had gone out to the market and say, hey, what's going on? Tell us what's your biggest challenge? What would you like to see? What would move things forward? And then design a product or a service based on those inputs. I think it will resonate so much more because people are like, oh my God, that we have that problem. And they're offering a solution to something that we actually are challenged with or dealing with.
And I think that's why story works so well, is like, those people have a story around that problem. If you can address that and involve them in the story, you know, even if you're a little off the mark with the solution, they're involved in the story. They're a part of it now.
And I think the most effective marketing is when someone recognizes themselves in the situation or the story that you're telling. It's like, oh yeah, I have that problem, or oh yeah, I deal with that. Creating something where the end user is able to recognize whether it's the pain point or whether it's the solution for them. That is like, oh, they can align with what you're talking about. If you can get that, that's amazing. From a marketing perspective, it doesn't get any better than that. Is when your client recognizes themselves and recognizes that you're offering, a solution which would obviously have a benefit. Again, we do love our value propositions.
Yeah. That's my story.
Or I have that too, or oh my God, we deal with that too, and they're offering a solution. I mean, there's the thing that's amazing, especially about small businesses, is there's just some universal truths that small business is hard. So if you're from a marketing perspective where you're off like pitching these get rich quick schemes, most people can see through that, and most people like, no, that's not us. What we're dealing with is how do I make payroll, or how do I generate leads, those pain points. And if you can get them to recognize themselves in your story, they'll let your world's further down the marketing path than some sort of cold call or lead.
Exactly. Yes. So other trends that you're seeing, Mike.
I mean, again, we're overshadowed by this generative AI and stuff. The trends that we see, and I think we've discussed, is I think that search is changing considerably. I think that the use of generative AI, like by companies like Google, will make it more and more challenging to rank via SEO, via search. And I think what that means going into 2024 is if you're a small business, if you are, anyone who's trying to break through the noise, you need to find other ways to get there, right? If you've been relying on paid ads, if you've been relying on Google SEO, I think that you're going to find some serious challenges in 2024 to continue to use that. We have seen we aren't producing any less content, and I would argue probably even we're producing better content than we've ever produced, and yet our numbers have dropped off considerably because we're not getting the organic traffic from Google that we used to, because I think most of, with the introduction of generative AI and the solutions on Google, you don't ever need to leave Google. So, we need to think about what that means. That we need to think about how do we get messaging from our own messaging as well as our clients' messaging out to their target audience, because what we've relied on for a very long time, which is paid ads and SEO, is probably not going to have the same type of impact moving forward. So, one of the things that we've been focusing on, and we're talking about merchant associations, so this should give you clues, we're going back to hyperlocal, and we're going back to meeting people in person, talking to people in person, focusing on hyperlocal. We're having discussions, this is an example, obviously, of within the merchant group of like, okay, how about cross promotions between the merchants? If you are a restaurant, you might want to align with an entertainment value. So they go out and they see a show, then they grab a bite to eat, and then maybe give them a coupon to go next door for a nightcap, those types of things. Just like some really basic generic cross-marketing opportunities at a local level. We're definitely seeing that, we need to, from an omni-channel perspective, just touch base everywhere, because our bread and butter, which has been Google forever, it is not going to react the same and is not going to give us the same type of results going forward for a myriad of reasons. So we can sit on the sideline and complain about that, or we can actively look for other avenues and other channels to get in front of the same target audience. LinkedIn is another alternative to Google, right? So there's a fair amount of search activity, and people are going to LinkedIn, especially when it's around B2B or professional services. So obviously we've ramped up our visibility on LinkedIn because we think that's a great place. I think if you are a business that is producing products, or a restaurant or something, I think Instagram is becoming, the visual component of, posting a picture of your meal, because that's just, and getting that user generated content. Not only are you promoting your restaurant, but having folks that are coming in and tagging the restaurant and showing pictures. So again, using user generated content and support is going to be very, very important. And then I think the last thing that I'd want to talk about is, do you use Siri or some equivalent?
Yes.
Yeah. So we had some friends over for Thanksgiving, and we were talking about something, and of course, it was like, hey Siri, what about this? We were talking about like some actor from a gazillion years ago, or some movie or something like that, and we just, we're using voice search a lot more and more. So, I think that making sure that, oh, and I said, hey Siri, and now my phone's reacting over here like it thinks I want to talk to her. Siri, I'm good. Take a break. We did. We love that.
Well, and
So,
right.
I love my phones listening to our podcast. You know what I mean?
That's hilarious. Yeah,
That's
no,
scary.
the
But yeah.
the voice
No one else
component.
listens to our podcast, but Sirius does. So thank you, Sirius. Thank you for listening to my podcast, or our podcast. But the last thing, like I said, is this idea of, search from a voice perspective, to make sure that you're found in search, and because I think people are going to use more and more voice inquiries, whether it be Siri or some other voice enabled technology, but the ability to chat into our technology and get an output. And we're seeing that, we read AI, it produces transcripts, it produces summarizations of our discussions, comes up with FAQs. Like, I didn't even think of that. So much of this, folks are willing to be a little more passive in their absorption of content. So moving towards videos, moving towards voice, and being less dependent on Google search and SEO to drive traffic at this point.
Yes. Well, and it's what we're really talking about is it's a really fine line. It's kind of an intersection in between the authenticity and using AI tools. And that's a balance that if you can find that, It's going to be hard
Yeah,
to
if
maintain,
you're
but
not
that
using AI, you're going to miss the bus, right? But
you've already
what's interesting is I was going to say we've worked in digital health a long time, and marketing and messaging and stuff like that around digital health. And there's always been this fear of AI that it's going to take people's jobs, right? Because AI is going to be better. And so here's what we understand, and this is just from a healthcare perspective, is if you compare a doctor and an AI solution, AI will outperform the doctor. Okay. However, if you combine the AI and the doctor's expertise and then create an
touch.
insight from that, that outperforms AI alone every single time. So, it's not about you know either or. It's about embracing AI and embracing these technologies because it will give you the tools to be better at what you do. It's not a better writer than you if you just generically given it an input, but it will prompt you and help you to produce better content if you combine the AI with your expertise and with your insights. So um, I think that AI is a great opportunity. I'm not a doom and gloom kind of person around AI. I think AI is a great opportunity to enhance what we're working on and to do make what we're doing better, because it has some insights and it has a knowledge base way beyond anything. Even if we did know it, we're probably going to forget half of it. So it will, it doesn't forget. So we're leveraging AI at every opportunity we can because we think that will make us better at doing our jobs.
Amen.
Amen. So I guess that's a good place to end, right? We can end with an amen, hallelujah, and within the holiday theme and spirit. Um, so in recap, we're happy and excited about AI. We think that the SEO AdWord landscape is going to dramatically change in the near future. We think that one of the key aspects of differentiating what you're doing, whether it be content or just interacting with your customers, is just get out there and talk to people. This idea of authenticity, right? Of just, we want some transparency. We want to see how the sausage is made to some degree, not 100%, but to some degree, and just go out and talk to people. For us, we are going to continue to focus on hyperlocal because we think there's an opportunity there, just whether it's cross promotions between businesses, whether it's referral marketing, which you and I are big fans of just getting out and talking to people, whether, talking to them live or talking to them via Zoom, we're just out there talking to people. I know that you are, doing a lot of work within the speaking field because this is an opportunity to get in front of people and connect with them directly. And these are where we're focusing in order to move our marketing efforts forward for both ourselves and our clients.
Yeah, that was a great recap, Mike.
I've been doing this once or twice. And again, we're excited because the only person who does listen to us is Siri, and she pays attention. So thank you, Siri, for bringing our audience this week.
That's
And
fantastic.
we will be back next week. We're excited as we get into the holiday season. We'll continue to talk about that. For many clients, especially if they're retailers or whatnot, this is the best time of the year, and they need to be on their game, whether it be through marketing and messaging. I'm not going to go too far down this path, but I was actually generally surprised. I received minimal amount of Black Friday promotions via email and stuff like that. I think in years past, it's been a lot heavier. So people, I think, are aware of that, and they're still out there. But I didn't feel as inundated this year. So hopefully that's a good thing. So if you like what we're hearing, give us a like, give us a comment. If there's something you want us to talk about, we'd be happy to do that as well. Leave it in the comments below. And we hope to see you next week in Badass Marketing.
Fantastic.
All right.
See you,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.